Hello, and thank you very much for the kind introduction. And thank you to the team at Maplesoft for inviting us to participate in the Converting Technology Showcase. As was mentioned, my name is Kerscher, and I'm the Executive Director with the Association for Roll-to-Roll Converters. It's a pleasure to be with everyone today. And looking over the attendee list, I see a number of familiar names and companies, some of which are members of our association. For those folks that might be new, a bit about our association. We're an industry nonprofit that is built around providing training programs and operational excellence information to help educate, connect, and grow the roll-to-roll converting industry. We'll have a bit more about that at the end of the presentation. But the reason that we're here today is about where we see the industry going. As a participant in the roll-to-roll converting industry, you know that it's a thriving, evolving industry that touches many different markets, many different materials and applications. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what we see as far as high-level trends across manufacturing, what that does and how it impacts roll-to-roll converting. And then we'll take a couple of snapshots looking at different markets and what kind of trends we see in those areas and how that might impact some of the work that you're doing. We'll close up with kind of a look ahead and seeing where the industry is going and what it's doing. Starting off with trends in manufacturing, there's a number of things right now that are impacting manufacturing today. We do have a big digital push where we see Industry 4.0 taking hold, the impacts of big data, machine learning, and how that's impacting and changing what we can do with the information, and even more, maybe more appropriately, the new information that we can collect and analyze. That becomes increasingly important as we're looking at customization. So we see changes in consumer dynamics and product mixes and needs to operate a plant efficiently with shorter lead times, shorter run times, and those customization scenarios. So that's a challenge that we have a number of people that are trying to work through. Sustainability is a big undercurrent that impacts all parts of our manufacturing, everything from legislation and regulatory bodies to internal needs and how we act as stewards to the industry and what we can do to be more efficient and effective from a manufacturing standpoint. Underlying all of that, precision and quality is a staple for manufacturing. We see that needing increasing as you get to tighter tolerances, more sophisticated, more expensive materials. And to pull all this together, we're seeing more industry collaborations taking place across markets, universities, research groups, and even combined collaborations between organizations across different markets and segments. So as this impacts converting, we hosted an event a couple weeks ago where we asked participants to describe in a word where they saw the state of the converting industry. The results were kind of interesting. You built a word cloud real time, and I'll let you take a moment to kind of look over this. It's really interesting that there's kind of a strong presence of, man, things are challenging right now, or changing. It's also mixed with optimism as the industry is growing and innovating and expanding. So as we work through this, it's really interesting to see the extremes that we have here, and almost every challenge or pessimistic type of view of what's taking place is balanced with an equal and opposite, or maybe even stronger positive slant to that. And we as an association take that encouraging, and we see a lot of opportunity for the industry to grow. So where do we see innovation taking place in converting? It's very difficult to summarize in just a few bullet points, but I'll make three main notes here. So yes, in the area of digitalization and smart manufacturing, we do see that taking place as machine builders bring technology and communication in. There's an increased number of sensors, controls, QC systems in place that allow us to talk to other parts of not just our machinery and our manufacturing plant, but the ERP systems and customer demand software. We're seeing that improve and increase across areas of printing, coating, laminating, as people are developing hybrid presses or taking on challenging multi-layer nano coating type materials. After digitalization and smart manufacturing, we look at efficiency and waste reduction. One of the main benefits of roll-to-roll converting is that it's a continuous process. And with that comes natural efficiencies in production, in producing high value goods. With that, we're seeing an increase in drying and curing systems to help bring new technologies to market, as well as helping those technologies run at faster rates. We mentioned hybrid equipment coming together to save space and time as people are trying to get the most out of a footprint in a floor plan. Boosting inspection systems and quality assurance programs with the ability for machine learning and data visualization. There's more that we can do to increase the uniformity and productiveness of our manufacturing processes. Lastly, I'll mention customization and speed to market. This is an area that is across all industries and all markets and consumer demands and needs. We're seeing people take that differently, from process scale up to new product introductions. There's a broad use of contract manufacturing and how people can do that with modular systems, bring those into their plant, use a type of dryer or another dryer depending on the product they're making. We do see people using simulation and digital twins, not just for design, but for optimization. And then as we see new materials come to market, we're seeing a lot of collaboration across the industry as people work together. Next, I'd like to take a look at our market snapshots and kind of share information about, we're going to cover three kind of areas and then go into deeper detail in flexible packaging. Starting off with the battery market, and I apologize for the lack of pictures here. It's sometimes difficult to get proprietary imagery to share with everyone here, but the battery market's changing. We know that there's global demand. Some of that demand is happening regionally, and we're seeing it change as governments kind of pull back on funding and how that's impacting things. So despite some of the legislative and regulatory challenges people are seeing, there's still demand for the product. And as people are doing that, they're trying to get more out of the products that they have. So they want to produce more energy efficient, higher energy density batteries and make those lighter and lighter. So we're seeing that change not just in the lithium ion, but also in the solid state area. So how does that translate to roll converting? A number of these materials are very sensitive to tension and drying. So that means that there is a tighter tolerance on web control, wrinkles and defects, slot die coating issues and challenges, pinholing can be catastrophic in the area of battery, not just creating a defect, but also a performance issue or safety challenge. So we're seeing challenging needs there as people are looking with slot die coating and using high slurry content materials with also very demanding drying capabilities added into that. Inline inspection is very important as you're looking at making sure that you have very quality anodes and cathodes that you're making throughout the process. Taking a look now at fuel cells. Fuel cells are growing in demand as there's an interest and push for clean energy and green hydrogen. Fuel cells are seeing use and applications in high power output areas where a battery and the weight of batteries might not necessarily be sufficient, and a fuel cell can overcome that. So there's an increased demand there, and several governments looking at that on how they can grow that. To get the power and demand that they need, they're looking at very interesting catalyst layers as well as membrane technologies, and that translates directly into the roll-to-roll production. In roll-to-roll production, we're seeing greater use of multi-layer coating technologies to handle different materials across the diffusion layers. The solvents and waters and some of the ingredients that are used to get the high functioning materials are also either high value, so waste and control and even recovery is very challenging of that. So there's a lot of focus here on optimization, precise slot die coating, making sure that you get very uniform coverage in very thin layers. Moving on and kind of taking a look at a component sometimes in the fuel cells as well, so also used for water filtration, other media, is membrane technology. So a lot of advancements in membrane materials taking place over years. We're seeing expansion not just in water treatment, but I mentioned energy storage and then the healthcare and diagnostics area. These functional membranes typically work on through ion exchange, so controlling and tailoring the porosity and the selectivity of the materials that migrate through the membrane becomes very important. The roll-to-roll converting process is instrumental in producing these at high volumes because we're able to have a very tight control over the tolerances and the materials that we put down in the coating technologies. Many of these are done in clean rooms, so a very controlled environment for production, and they're working with very sensitive materials and substrates that require special web handling techniques and technology. Moving on to flexible packaging. Flexible packaging is probably one of the larger markets for roll-to-roll converting, and then it's used every day. So this space is very common for all of us. I think everybody listening in on the presentation has handled a flexible package probably today, and if not, you will. But this industry is also in a state of flux and changing. A number of government regulations, not just in the United States, but Europe. PPWR is having an impact and will continue to have an impact globally on how packages are produced and how they're used at end of life. So with that, there's a demand for more sustainable materials and mono-material structures, a push for recyclability and compostability, and then increased focus on where and how that is communicated across supply chain. Also, in between our supply chain as well as with consumers as they try to communicate how to recycle or how to dispose of properly at the end of life. So flexible packaging is a really interesting space for that. A number of items that influence roll-to-roll converting. So our team took on a special approach here. So I'm going to share results from a case study that we did where we reached out and had conversations with a number of consumer packaged good companies across the globe about what are they seeing, what do they need, how can a trade association help communicate their challenges to the manufacturing community that can put these things together. So we hosted a series of discussions across a number of different industries, food, snacks, in personal care. We even touched on building, construction, industrial markets, as well as health and beauty. Throughout these, we took a number of notes and interesting conversations. It's really interesting to see how companies are at different stages. Some companies are well down the path and have a plan in place, and they're waiting to choose what they deploy based on what government challenges are put in place and what regulations they're faced with. Some other companies are earlier on, and they're trying to say, hey, wait, we're going to be a fast follower. We're aware and we understand, and we want to know what to do next after something has been tested, tried, and true. One thing that just remains steady throughout all of this is that the role of packaging is consistent. Regardless of the material that we're using, it still must protect, contain, preserve, and help promote the products that it's trying to move. So with that, the challenges that some of the brand owners are facing is how do we handle all of these regulatory challenges and things that we have going on with consumer preference, distribution channels, as well as corporate initiatives that are out there as they look to develop a package. So some key learnings that we picked up out of this, and it's challenging to kind of bucket these, but we took a stab at that and created 6 different categories where we saw a number of comments across these different areas. First, we'll start with material complexity. Flexible packaging is useful because it's taking the best of all these different polymeric materials and putting them together in a multi-layer structure. Now with some of the recycle-ready demands, there's a move towards a recyclable mono-material structure, but we still need the barrier properties. So that's creating some challenges, not just in production of the package, filling, sealing of the package, as well as transport. So the brands are trying to balance all of those needs into a mono-material structure. End-of-life management, second category. This is one where different regions of the world have different infrastructure in place, not just to collect, but also recycle. There's also a number of different end-of-life options, different types of recycling, incineration, advanced recycling that's under play here. So taking those into consideration, as a multinational brand is launching a product, they want to create a package that can be used globally. Regulatory pressures, I mentioned that. There's a number of not just regulations related to recycling. Many of you recall the emphasis on PFAS and other material restrictions that have been in play over the years that still impact the types of materials and products that we use. As you're looking at innovating and scaling a new package, you do need to think about material availability. There's a number of really innovative compostable materials or sustainable raw material, naturally derived raw material, polymer sources that are interesting, but the scale and availability doesn't help reach what's needed for a mass market introduction. So there's challenges there. There's even challenges collecting enough post-consumer recycled material. So there's a number of things that are taking place there, even just on collecting and sourcing the right balance of materials. As you can imagine, there's a high degree of risk involved with that. So the risk isn't just in choosing the right materials, investing in making it. There's a risk here of brand acceptance and consumer acceptance. So for a number of the companies we spoke to, their consumer products of well-established billion-dollar brands. Changing the packaging, the look, the feel, the attributes of it can have an impact not just on product performance and consumer experience, but they may not accept it. So there's a risk there that is still an unknown and needs to be explored. Brand value. Sometimes sustainability and making the move there aligns with the brand and helps enhance it and bring it to a new market. In other instances, changing the packaging could be the brand, especially maybe for a luxury type product. The packaging is very substantial into what and how and what it communicates to a consumer. So could we take a very high value luxury glass cosmetic and put that into a mono material pouch? We don't know yet. And that's one of the things that people are facing and still doing studies on. As we communicate these things across the industry, it's a challenge for everyone involved, not just to the consumer, as we just mentioned, but internal to the supply chain. There's a lot of things that need to take place for collaborators to bring and provide that education for everyone involved. So outside of these areas, we did identify a number of particular challenges or business opportunities for the converting industry, and these we've added into four main categories. On the material side of things, looking for help with new materials that are recycle ready, pre-approved for store drop-off. And that's not just the substrates, that includes adhesives and inks. I did already mention that people are looking to a mono material or an all polyolefin structure. And then with that, there's also an increased demand in trying to find performance papers. How can we use a paper product or a cellulose-derived product and provide the barrier performance and sealing performance that's still needed to package and protect the goods? Beyond the material and substrate, there's a number of things that come into play with the packaging formats and how they're used. So if you think about a stand-up pouch versus a pillow pouch, that geometry and the forming of that can be a challenge, especially on high-speed converting equipment. So how do we do that? And how can we take a two-dimensional structure and maybe turn it into a three-dimensional design? If someone's currently using a glass jar or bottle and looking to find ways to get that into a flexible pouch to take advantage of the weight savings, how do we form it? How do we get the dead fold properties? Especially when we don't want to use foil. How do we have the production windows so that we can use it on existing equipment? So talking about brand risk, where there's plants upon plants with installed capacity, changing those materials, we still want to make sure that the new material processes at commercial rates on existing equipment. On the performance side of things, a few things stand out. As we look at a multi-layer structure or a structure that was designed with different materials for different purposes, whether that's toughness, sealing, print decoration, we're trying to get that now all out of one material. So we have a really challenging balance of trying to identify something that is heat resistant, but also has sealing performance. We still need seal initiation temperature, and we still need intimate seals that take place at the triple points as you're forming the stand-up pouch. Barrier coatings. I'll take a moment here to mention that that's one of the more important areas with package protection, but it's also one of the more challenging. As we're metallizing things or working with ALOX coatings, they still stress crack. So material handling properties of some of these new materials that are used are going to be or are a challenge. I do want to bring up, I mentioned the recycle ready on the substrate side of things. If you're not already aware, there are other associations that specialize in this, so we'd be happy to help point you in the right direction. But adhesives and inks that are used in label stock or reverse printed laminations also need to be approved and help support the end of life path that they go on, whether that's a recycling or a composting. Lastly, I'll mention communication was brought up on more than one occasion. It's an interesting spot to be in. The brands are looking for information because they need to know what is recycle ready and what can be communicated. But the converters are protecting their proprietary developments. So we're kind of at a natural impasse here of what can we communicate, how can we communicate it to help make sure that it's just open and everyone's working on the right types of products and discussions. So a really interesting opportunity here for us to talk directly with the brands, get that feedback. We recently shared this information at our packaging summit a few weeks ago. We're looking for the next iteration of this as we continue to be kind of a middle mediator in these discussions and continue to support the association as it looks to evolve. Looking ahead, going back to this word cloud and the challenges and the opportunities, I will say that the converting industry is thriving. It's an industry that's made for adapting. It's made for scale up. It's made for consistency. It's made for cost productive manufacturing. So the future is bright. Some of the things that we're processing, the materials we're handling, and the ways that we do business might change, but our industry is built to be adaptable. It's naturally a reliable, highly technical process for creating new materials. Innovation is happening at a rapid pace. We're seeing new innovations in not just substrates, but adhesives and inks and coatings, processing technology, rolling material, inspection systems, slitting and winding. The entire supply chain for roll-to-roll converting is innovating to handle these new materials and these new challenges. Inherently efficient process, ideal for reducing waste and maximizing economics. So yes, there's a large capital investment in many places, but as you get through that and work through that, roll-to-roll processing enables many of these materials to be handled efficiently and effectively at the quality standards that are needed. Digitalization and control, we see a strong future for sensors, QA systems, the ability to pull that in, manage it with AI language models to help make us not just understand, but then control and improve our processes in real time. So that is something that continues to change and shape our industry. One of the things that is mentioned here over and over again is the industry's turning over. We're seeing a change in workforce development, and as knowledge is retiring from the industry, we're bringing new engineers, new operators, new technicians into the industry. The importance of training programs and partnerships to help bring everyone up to speed and make sure that knowledge sharing continues is an important attribute for the industry and where we're looking ahead. Finally, I'll mention global expansion. Roll-to-roll converting is a global community. There's a number of international machinery providers, knowledge hubs, material providers that support each other. And it's really encouraging to see that take place at a number of our events. And we're happy to be a part of that to help bring people together. So we're going to continue to see that global growth, not just in emerging markets and materials, but as we interact as a global community. As I wrap up, I'd like to share just a couple of closing comments about the Association for Roll-to-Roll Converters. I recognize that some of you might not be as familiar with us and what our association does. As an industry group, we are here to provide educational resources, training programs, and support to help you succeed in doing what you do better. We're a strong, stable foundation organization. We've been in business for over 55 years. We have over roughly 250 member organizations, over 4,000 individuals, and we operate globally. We provide a unique set of benefits for converters, anyone that's processing and moving web, the supplier and consulting industry, as well as the academic unit and fundamental research group. So if you have questions about any of these things, please take a look at the website, reach out to me, and I'd be happy to get you in touch with our team. A couple of events that we have coming up, if you're looking to learn more, I'd like to point you to a few things that we have coming up just in a couple weeks. We'll be in Milano, Italy, for a Roll-to-Roll Europe event. This fall will be at two events partnering with local universities, the University of Wisconsin-Madison and Rochester Institute of Technology for events. And then our flagship event is Roll-to-Roll USA, which will be taking place in Cleveland, spring of 2026. If travel's not in your future, we do have some virtual options. So our group does provide a number of training programs that are available to you and your teams. Members of our association have access to this for free, small cost for those that are not, but these are taught remotely by industry experts, touching on topics like web handling, process design, coding, laminating, intro to polymers. If you have interest in this area, please feel free to reach out. And with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your time and attention. We appreciate all that you've done, and with that, I'd like to turn it back over to the hosts at Maplesoft. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak with everyone today.
And thank you, Chris, for packing in so much information into that session. That was really valuable. Now we are turning over to the audience for any Q&A that you can ask Chris on related to the industry at large or into the Association for Roll-to-Roll Converters. If you want to ask a question, you can type it into the chat, and that will bring up we'll read it out on air so that people can hear it on the recording. Feel free to type that in, and we'll also have that available during the whole session for any the other speakers too. So, Chris, just while people are getting settled in, maybe thinking of a question, perhaps I could ask one myself. Compared to a few years ago, which of the converting market segments are you seeing have a real growth? Like you mentioned a few areas of technology that are changing. Which market areas are affected the most?
Very interesting question, and I wish I had some hard and facts to share with everybody on this. But just what we collect in the information across our membership, tapes, labels, flexible packaging tend to be really steady industries. A lot of growth there as people are producing new products, taking new things to market. A lot of that growth is change in format, change in style, samples, and things like that. So there's a lot of opportunity in those markets, and they kind of are the large volume for what a lot of our member companies produce. Other markets like medical packaging, or medical devices, we didn't even talk about in the presentation, are seeing really unique opportunities, both in what they're developing and how they're forming with new materials, but also incorporation of flexible electronics. So there's a lot of biosensors or transdermal patches that people are using that are seeing growth for medical and drug delivery. So medical is kind of a really interesting space, both in the actual device as well as the packaging that protects those devices and keeps them sanitary. I'll touch on the energy market a little bit. I know I mentioned that in the presentation. Battery is an interesting market right now, and when a lot of people think about the battery market, they're really focusing on the EV space, and we're seeing a bit of a slowdown across the globe in that area, both with a little bit of consumer preference interests maybe changing, but also government sponsorships and grants that were fueling and funding a lot of that. So it's interesting that when you talk to people in the battery market, it really depends on what position they are and what they're doing. The equipment providers are saying, hey, it's really slowed down because people with grant money bought a bunch of machines. They still have capacity. It hasn't grown as exponentially as experts had predicted. So there's still capacity to produce the batteries that are needed. But if you talk to people in the inspection part of the industry or the web handling side of things, there's additional focus now on the quality of what people are producing and making sure that we're not reducing waste. So even within some of these markets, there's nuance in where you're seeing growth and where they're not. So now with government funding being pulled back, emphasis on making sure we're making top quality product and we're not wasting funds seems to be getting a little bit higher, and people are investing in inspections and control systems. So all of these markets, it's part of the great diversity of our industry is the markets all have a space and a home where there is some growth, and it's just a matter of how you're approaching it.
Well, and some of the areas also are holding back a little bit. There was someone actually sent me a question about sustainability and just how the influx of new regulations around the recycled materials and so on starting to make people fearful. Is that something you're seeing, or are people more optimistic that it's going to change?
Absolutely, change is natural, and I think what if I can share with everybody in the presentation is embrace it, because it's an opportunity for you to adapt and grow with your product mix. And like I said, our industry is built for customization. So there will be changes. Some of those changes are a little bit harder to put in play, and I'm hearing companies waiting for really where some of the regulations might steer them. So some of the large consumer packaged good companies have already gone down the path to develop a compostable solution, a recyclable solution, and a biodegradable option. And they're waiting to see what regulation and where that gets steered on how they use it. So yes, change is coming. Sustainability has changed the way of people approach a lot of things. So yes, if you haven't been looking at some of these other materials, I saw a comment about recycled paper. Recycled paper is absolutely something that we're going to see. Post-consumer content in films and consumer packaged goods is also going to happen. Sourcing it is a challenge. Processing and predictability there creates some new opportunities for web handling, tension control, and making sure that your process is designed in a way that it can handle those. Some of the biomaterials have very different physical properties and stiffness characteristics. So you might be designed or set up for one choice, and as your customer kind of steers you towards another option, you might start seeing changes in drying characteristics or the way the web is handling and being processed because stiffness has changed. So yes, I think sustainability is going to change quite a bit. I think we can overcome it, but I think everybody should go in with their eyes open that yes, I'm using some new materials and I might need to handle them differently.
And it's also opening up the market that instead of having a single vendor who could provide a certain niche supply or a certain grade of material, you're now actually being able to put that out to tender and to start to shop around for those solutions. So I think that's innovation has a part to drive the market as well. Well,
Absolutely. Yep.
Chris, thank you so much for coming today, for sharing today. I hear you may stick around backstage to answer some of the chat questions. So thanks for joining us.